fortunate to have her as my second grade teacher. Can I have a couple hands of who also had Miss Mosheim? Wow.
I chose to wear today an outfit that most resembled my Burke's uniform when I was in Miss Mosheim's class, so green plaid uniform. And I just wanted to share a few memories of being in second grade with Miss Mosheim before I went on to ask her a few questions about her experience teaching at Burke's and about her passion and what has brought her to teaching. I was talking to my children this morning while I was driving them to school, and I was telling them about how when I was in second grade, I was really bad at telling time. And my husband would probably argue that I'm still not so great at telling time. I'm always a little bit late, but I'm not as late as I would be because Ms. Mosheim held me after school one day and really explained time to me in a way that I had never understood. And I remember being so thankful because for years I couldn't understand what was going on. I was always pretending I understood how to tell time, what my classmates did. And Ms. Mosheim kept me after school until I figured out how to tell time. So I can read that clock right now and tell you what time it is. I also was telling my children about something that happened, it was very fortuitous. In second grade, Ms. Mosheim was writing something on the board, and I'll never forget that. She was writing the gum factory. We're talking about gum. I have to turn a little bit more so I can see you. We're talking about gum, and she wrote gum factory on the board. And she was writing quickly, and she made a mistake, and she wrote glum factory, G-L-U-M. And we all said, Ms. Mosheim, you wrote glum factory, not gum factory. And instead of erasing it, she said, well, what would a glum factory be? What would that look like? And we all got really excited about imagining a glum factory. And from then on, I think the next month, maybe even the rest of the school year, we all, whenever we had a chance, we were writing essays about the glum factory, we were designing the glum factory and what it might look like, we were talking about the glum factory. And I just thought that was such a great example of being really flexible as a teacher and also really knowing how you don't have to stick to a curriculum. If your students are interested in something and it's going to inspire them, you can go in that direction. And that's something that really inspires me today when I'm working with students. To always be flexible, and even if a lesson plan isn't exactly, I don't have to follow the exact lesson plan that's in front of me, I can still teach kids lessons sometimes even if I make a mistake. So I was telling my kids about this morning, and my son actually got so excited about the glum factory that he said, Mama, today after school, can we design the glum factory? And my daughter wanted to know if she could write a story about the glum factory. So I'm just proud to say that all these years later, the glum factory is still a big topic in our house. A few questions here. We're going to do an interview here, and even if many of you had her as a teacher, you might not know her answers to some of these questions, so I encourage you to listen really closely to hear what she has to say about teaching and her experience teaching all of you. First of all, I understand that exercise has changed your whole way of teaching, and I'm wondering if you can talk about that to me and to the students.
Well, I've never used the microphone. So one day, just use my normal. Okay. So one day after school it was raining and I was very tired, and there was a special workshop on exercise and the brain. And I thought to myself, do I really want to do that? Or do I want to go home, eat a snack, and read a lovely book? But I did go, and I listened to the gentleman talking about the brain and exercise. And what he said was, and the girls in my room can go me too, how exercise gets oxygen to your brain and you're ready to listen, just that little bit of moving around. So are you guys ready? Everybody stand up and move around quickly. So as you can see, get up from your desk and jump around, run around the house, and get right back to work, and you'll feel a lot better. Does my second grade agree with me?
I feel better right now just after having done that. Thank you. Can you talk a little bit about how you first learned about birds?
Well, that's kind of, I lived very near Burke School. And I went, if you're ever on Balboa Street, I went to a school called Lafayette. And how many know Lafayette? And my best friend, who was also on my block, also went to Lafayette. And we'd often play together. And when she was in 6th grade, she moved to Burke School. And I was very, very sad, but Burke School really, really helped me, and I've actually never told this story, but I have a learning difference. Well, I've told this to my class, and I'm dyslexic, so I read many things backwards, sometimes, especially numbers, and the girls in the class will tell you sometimes I reverse words, and reading for me was really, really hard. And it took me a long time. If some of you show me too, you've read Patricia Polanco's book. Thank you, Mr. Fokker. Who's read that book? And it talks about how hard it was for her to learn to read. And I'm struggling along, and my dear friend, Susan Shoemaker, was reading for the summer. Burke's always sends home a reading list. And she was reading these wonderful books, and she said, Gale, she didn't call me Mrs. Mosheim, Gale, why don't, you might like these books. And slowly I began to read them, and from that day on, my reading slowly got better, and I love to read. So, thank you, Burke School.
And what originally got you into teaching? Was it the same impetus, or what initiated your love of teaching?
So throughout my years at school, in those days, it's a lot of years ago, teachers would always use a red pen to mark papers. And I was the queen of the red pen. I had more red marks on my papers and more, oh, you can do better. And I decided at a very young age that children should love to learn and everybody should do the best they can. And I knew from about 8 years old I was going to be a teacher and change the way children were taught.
What has kept you in teaching for so long, and why did you stay at Burke's for 40 years?
I love to teach, and every day is fun. A teacher is always learning, and I love to learn. And part of teaching that is so much fun is learning from the girls and teaching the girls. And always, whenever you're a teacher, you're always studying. You're going to the library to find out things, you're reading books, and you're just generally enjoying yourself. And it was a really hard decision after 40 years to say goodbye, but to say goodbye to something you love so much. But yeah, it's time to do other things.
Is there a teacher or any other person, famous or less well known, who has been an inspiration for you?
Her really is by herself, and there's been so many people in my life that have inspired me and helped me, and I'd love to name a few. First of all, David Fleischacker. He was my first. If he's here, why doesn't he stand up so people can see? graduated Teachers College, and I was 25 years old, and David had a lot of faith in a brand new young teacher, and David would sit at his desk and he had a pipe, if you can imagine this, right? A pipe sticking out of his mouth, and the whole office smelled like pipe smoke. And he'd sit there and he loved to talk and joke around, and he interviewed me and he said something that has stuck with me my whole life. Teach what you love and the rest will come. And he was a great inspiration. He always believed in teaching the things that you were interested in. And because teaching takes a village, there are so many people, and a few other people I'd love to recognize. Georgia Malin. She was the first head of lower school that I worked with, and she always sat very straight, and she always said to you, inspire your girls to do their personal best. And there's someone else sitting over there that I didn't expect that has helped me, and I know all of you will recognize her and say me too, Elizabeth Coleman. Always there for all of you and for us, would help us if someone wasn't feeling well, would give us sage advice on how to handle different situations. And I don't know if I could have made it through all those years without her. And I promise I won't make this too long. There's just a few other people along the way. I taught with Candace McMunn, who's not here today, who was a great inspiration. And we worked together 22 years. And when she left, I worked for the last 10 years with two very amazing ladies, Miss Tang and Miss Down. All the people that answer the phone, order, schedule, are always there to help you. And also, all the heads of lower school, and I finished my last year with a very special woman. Every time I have a problem and come to her for advice, she always has books and things to give me. So I'd like Miss Moore to stand up. Three more. I could go on forever, but this person is kind of behind the scenes, and she doesn't expect me to say one word. But as all of you know, for Halloween, you had the Gale Mosheim Day, and all the teachers dressed better than I usually dress, in jeans. They had their sweater behind them and a turtleneck. And there's someone along the way, I should have consulted her maybe today, who kind of gives me a little advice on dressing and kind of helps me along. Miss Ramasetti. About the classroom as well. So the last group of people that most of you don't know, when you go home and you're sitting at home doing homework, enjoying yourself, hopefully reading a book of poetry, all the teachers are sitting at a meeting thinking about what we're going to do, planning and creating new lessons and learning off of each other. And I could never have lasted 40 years without the lower and upper school teachers. So I think, and the staff, everybody stand up and let's give them a hand. Lastly, I worked so many years with Mr. Fleischacker and so many other heads, and I am very lucky to finish my last years with a wonderful woman who always has a smile on her face and has some glue in her office. If you know who that lady is, although it's not the best to point, let's all point to her and thank Miss Williams.
It's so fun to hear Ms. Mosheim mention some of those names. Mr. Fleischacker was the principal when I was at Burke's and also taught me math and also taught me a lot about movies during when we had intercession classes, and I would take film classes from him. And Miss Malin, who she mentioned, would always teach us the difference between can and may. At the end of lunch we would say, "Can I be excused?" And she would say, "I don't know, can you? May you be excused?" So Coleman was also there when I was at Burke's, and I was friends with her daughter, and she was a classmate of mine and a good friend. So it's really fun to hear you mention those names. I am going to ask you, what do you like to do away from school? How do you renew yourself, and do you have any plans for how you will spend the first year or so of your retirement?
So, as the girls in the class know, I love to bird watch. And you girls can know me too. In the middle of class yesterday, someone called out, "I've just seen a scrub jay over there." So I hope to do some bird watching. I love to walk. And as the girls know, I love to read. And my biggest passion, of course, is teaching writing. And this summer with Ms. Brooks and Ms. Stanley, we're going to teach writing for a couple of weeks that I'm really, really excited about. And also I love to just walk around and look at antiques and study antiques.
So would you say that, I know you said that Mr. Fleischacker gave you good advice to teach what you love to teach. Is writing something that you always loved teaching?
As girls in second grade and all through my classes up to the 8th grade, I'm sure if you remember your writer's workshop stories, oh, me too. Upper school. 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. So I love the excitement of teaching writing, reading what the girls have written, sharing their ideas with the class, and always editing and correcting them and building better stories. So I do love I've always loved to write. I can remember Edie Fleischacker's first story, and I remember grabbing her parents and saying, "Come quickly, it's on the bulletin board, you've got to take a look at it." She's such a great writer.
Who was your favorite writer? Favorite author, I should say.
Well, that's hard to say, but I will say I'm going to pick rather than a writer, besides Miss Vida, of course. My favorite really is Emily Dickinson, and she's a poet, and I have her book of poems by my desk, by my bed, and every night I try to read a poem, and while I'm going to sleep, try to figure out exactly what she's trying to tell me.
What?
So, I would say we have so many wonderful examples at this school, And teaching's about doing your passion. I just read in the Chronicle on Sunday and about drama teachers, and one drama teacher said how he stayed. He taught 5th period at a school, a public school in San Mateo, and every day he would have teach 5th period, and then he stayed 2 hours of his own time, and then came in on weekends. So I would say if you have a passion to share your love of knowledge, books, teaching is for you. And we have what's called at Burke's an AT program. And we have many young teachers that are working for their credentials or have their credentials. And I can tell how passionate and hard they work. And as I was thinking the other night, as I'm retiring and the baby boomers are retiring, we are leaving teaching in the hands of some pretty great women of the future. Let's give our ATs a hand and have them stand up. One of the young women who stood up is Libby Orrick. And I had the privilege of teaching all the Orrick girls. And when Libby was in 2nd grade, she loved Writer's Workshop. And she would create songs and stories and sing them to all of us. And there was a true sparkle in her eyes. And I would say that's true of all teachers.
Asking questions all day, but maybe we'll have to go on a walk and go bird watching when you're retired, and we'll catch up more. But I just want to say thank you to Lisa Spengler, who invited me here today, and to Michelle Williams, and to all of you and to all of my teachers, and especially to Ms. Mosheim. I want to thank you, and I think we should all stand up.